Ladies and gentlemen, appreciate the opportunity to be with the leadership of Rensselaer County, a strong executive here, and of course Steve and Assembly. I know we got a new supervisor in here as well, and a very eclectic and diverse set of professionals here today joining for lunch. Looking at us, we got the president of the Hudson Valley Community College, very proud of all that they have done. Really a forward-looking and leading institution that I'm going to tell you right now, it's making a huge difference, not only for our area, I think you know that, but I think really setting a great example for the country. I see Nick back there, who represents the RPI as well. I mean, you know, I just want to say that, you know, the president had so many choices on where he could have gone to showcase advanced manufacturing, you know, and if one was to take a sort of a cynical political look at it, you know, he probably wouldn't have gone here to New York, but he came here. And to me, I think it's a validation of all the investments that have been made here for the last couple of decades. It really speaks to the remarkable workforce that we have, highly motivated, dedicated, results-oriented workforce. And I know that these things just don't happen by chance. Luck doesn't, I mean, luck has a part of it, but it's really made through hard work and good choices, judgment, and investments. And so I want to applaud everyone here in this room that had a part in this, and the Chamber, I know, has been very active in pulling together this diverse set of leaders, because even as every day you have distinct and unique needs, challenges, there are certain characteristics and challenges that rise up and really are shared by all. What I want to do is give you an update on the Congress. I think it's important to do that for a couple of reasons. One, the obvious one is I work for you. Many of you here in this room have a responsibility to report to you. But you know, the other reason is that, you know, you turn on the news today, and quite frankly, it doesn't matter what channel, generally speaking. You can turn on Fox, you can turn on MSNBC, and what you're watching, observing, what you're reading is very divisive. It is often negative, and you know, and I would tell you that for different reasons they do it. Fox is you know, running down the country because they want to fire the president. MSNBC is running down the country because they want to fire the House Republicans. You know, but at the end of the day, what does that do for us as a people? You know, it won't surprise you. I think we're all products of our own experience on no different. Spent a long time since the age of 17 in the United States military. In the United States military, you got folks that come from all 50 states, from all the walks of life, and they come together for the single common purpose of protecting the cherished way of life and looking out for each other. And so I bring those experiences with me to the Congress. I want to give you an update on things that are happening that you probably don't see in the media every day. And there are things that are important and things that became law in many cases. The first one I'm going to tell you has passed through the House Agricultural Committee as of about 36 hours ago. And that is the farm bill that we do every 5 years. And this policy is so vitally important. You know, as somebody who spent a long time in the military where our interests on energy were constantly coming to the fore and requiring national security commitments, you know, I want to see us be energy independent. But I also don't ever want to see the day where we have to guard food, you know, or be involved in that kind of. So the only way that's going to happen is if we make sure that our family farms flourish. And of course, I'm biased on this. We've got the smartest, hardest working farmers in the world. Their issue is profitability. So what we should be sympathetic with that and trying to find ways to enhance their profitability. I think we've done good work in this farm bill. And I want to tell you, it was reported out in a strong bipartisan vote, 35 to 11 coming out of our committee. And you say, well, what about the 11 that voted no? Well, it was split between Republicans and Democrats, those that tended to be on the farther end of the spectrum. But a lot of the pragmatists in both parties, 35 strong votes in that committee. And what are some of the things we're doing there? Well, dairy, for example. You know, with all the best intentions coming out of 2008, policy, the last farm bill that passed, and then the 100-weight price for milk in 2009 dropped through the floor. And some folks in this room probably know some of the casualties of that. And you know, we had dairy farmers that went out of business. So what we're trying to do now is, instead of focusing primarily on the 100-weight price, is link it to margin because of those input prices. So we have a margin insurance, the first $4 of which it comes at no cost to the farmer. And then the farmer makes a choice as to, based on their intensely personal business plan, what makes sense. They can buy up from there, up to $8 for a margin. And look, this is not a perfect policy, but I'll tell you, we listen very carefully to our dairy farmers all throughout our region, and we work together. Bill Owens, my colleague from the north, and Peter Welch, my colleague to the east in Vermont. We work very closely together on this, and I feel this is a dairy policy that's going to be helpful. What about crops? Bill Langdon was asking me moments ago about the situation with the rain. Well, I'll tell you what, I wish we could figure that one out. When I was in military, we could at least blame the chow. But the thing about for our specialty crop farmers, first of all, I want you to know how incredibly excited I am about this area. We are burgeoning, we are growing. The Hudson River Valley, all throughout in the North Country, you're seeing a renaissance of agriculture. And what we wanted to do is, I work very closely with some national leaders that actually live in our area. They're not that far away. They're from Red Hook. Lindsay and Ben Shute, they help lead the Young Farmers Coalition. And what they're trying to do, what I think is inextricably linked to national security, is to inspire a new generation of farmers to come and heed the call of agriculture. And so they had some asks there. I thought they were reasonable. It had to do with opportunities to get started, grants, also credit title, making sure that they could get access to credit. And early on in the first 5 years, that they would be able to have business write-offs through the conservation programs, which are also vitally important. We got those in the bill. I'm excited about that. We also got energy provisions in the bill. We got provisions that inspire veterans to come to the farm. A whole number of things, farm to school. This was an amendment I brought to the floor with Shelley Pingree from Maine and Mr. Welch from Vermont. This is a pilot program that we're going to be eligible for, and what it does is so much more than empower the school, the teachers and the administrators to buy locally. I think it's going to be beyond, because I think it'll help build an inextricable link between our students, teachers, and farmers, so that they not only consume food from the local farm, but maybe they'll go out, maybe they'll go out for field trips, and it's quite possible that will help inspire a new generation of farmers. Got that in the bill. So excited about that. Now, it's a process. We got it through the committee. It's going to have to go to the House floor. And from the floor, then we'll have to conference it with the Senate. So what I just said, look, let's just keep moving forward on this. But I want to tell you that was progress, getting that out with a bipartisan vote. Also, the transportation bill. It wasn't everything I hoped it to be, but I want to tell you this, getting over 2 years of stability for our surface transportation, for our highways, for our roads and bridges. This was really important to do. And there were some that said, we're not going to be able to do it. We won't be able to come together and get that done. I will tell you that I insisted. I met with the leadership. I said, this is unacceptable. We need to govern. We've got to get this done. And I was proud of the fact that ended up happening. We've got a bill that's over 2 years. It's about 27 months. It's a slight increase on where we are right now, but even more importantly, it has reforms in there that's going to allow that bill to essentially play bigger than it looks right now. How? Well, we've reformed the process to execute projects so that they will actually execute in a quicker period of time. Time is money. That's less money having to be bonded and interest rates that go with it. That was important. The other thing is we provided more flexibilities to the states. And what that allows us to do at the end of the year, in any given disparate accounts, you may have residual. In other words, you've got proposals that come in for $3 million and maybe there's $1 million left in the account. It's not. Well, now there's flexibilities to the states. They can add up these disparate accounts and now they can put them together and they can actually get a project done, whereas it's been left over and unobligated. So I think that you see what's going on this. This was some good work. It also, I'll tell you that a particular aspect of that program has to do with the way the federal government plays a role in helping financing big projects. So we do have a big project here in the state, the Tappan Zee Bridge, and the work that we did at the federal level is going to help New York State going forward. So I give you that because you won't hear that. I mean, what you're likely to hear if you turn on the news, and whatever flavor that you aspire to, is you're going to hear other things. And I want to give you examples of ways that Democrats and Republicans work together in an era of divided government in the House, with the Senate, with the President, became law. Student loans. You heard a lot of ruckus about that, right? Came together. We got that done. The student loan interest rate is going to stay at 3.4%. It's law. Flood insurance reauthorization, very important to our area. You know, that's one that's been hung up for quite a long period of time. Democrats and Republicans working to get the president. It's done. It's law. Payroll tax. Look, quite frankly, I think what we need to do is comprehensive pro-growth tax reform. That's going to help our hardworking small business owners and our middle-class families, our hardworking families, keep more of their money. You look at historical data, it'll tell you that middle class generally spends 96% of what they make in a given year. They save 4%. But you know, if we can do pro-growth tax reform so that our small business owners and middle class families have more through closing loopholes that are not helping create jobs, it's going to grow the economy. We're going to get more revenues. But until such time that we get that done, the president had an ask that we extend the payroll tax. I thought it was reasonable. So we got to work together on this. So we voted to do that, and we got that done in the law. We extended that. Unemployment. Unemployment insurance, I know that may be an emotional issue for some here in the room. It was important, I think, you know, as a family, my dad was unemployed for a period of time. I thank God I live in a country that has the compassionate heart to recognize that there are times when Americans are down on their luck and need that program. We did it in a way that reformed the program and reauthorized it going forward, and we got an agreement. Medicare. Look, a lot of talk, political talk, a lot of it lacking substance, but a lot of talk about Medicare. Let me tell you what we got done into law is, had we not acted, the reimbursement rates for doctors would have been cut 27%. Now, as you know, it's an elective program for our doctors. And had that cut happened to Medicare, those doctors would have opted out. We lost the program by default. We didn't let that happen. Democrats and Republicans working together in the House, with the Senate, with the President, into law, got it done. Capital formation. And when we get in the Q&A, you're probably going to want to talk a little bit about that, about what my thoughts are, where the federal government can help when it comes to job creation. And I'll be glad to take that question. But I can tell you one of them is access to credit and capital formation. This was another area of bipartisan debate. This was about a couple months ago, and we got that into law. Trade. I come from this from a very commonsensical perspective. When I started looking into the details, you know, why is it that our exporters were paying 4 times higher tariffs with South Korea? I wouldn't go for that. You wouldn't go for that. And we fixed that. We fixed that. Democrats and Republicans working together with the president. We got fair trade agreements with South Korea, with Panama, and Colombia. And we got it into law. Something that the Farm Bureau, the New York State Farm Bureau, wanted me to pursue, and enthusiastically pursue, and we got that done. And I can tell you that this is going to help. Let me just give you one illustration. In Colombia, you know, in 2007, 44% of the goods in Colombia came from our farmers. And by 2010, that had dissipated down to 21%, and it was, by every indication, it was going to continue to head south. And it was because of the unfair arrangements. You know, with Colombia, over 90% of the goods that they sent here were duty-free. We had about a third of our goods that were duty-free. We'd go for something. I wouldn't go for that. You wouldn't go for that. We fixed that. So, you know, these are all important areas that I think that you don't hear every day. That certainly doesn't match the narrative. And again, it doesn't matter what channel you watch. You're not going to get that narrative. And the last thing is on veterans. You know, we came together and passed, I think, an important program. I want to make sure that the counties are tracking on it too. Because, you know, this provides $1,400 in a stipend while veterans are getting trained. So, you know, I did see a story in one of the outlets, the news stories in our district. But I think my office, we need to do more work to make sure that the word gets out about that program. Very important for our veterans. So, and then on top of that, of course, like here in New York State, we got our budgets done. We didn't shut down the government. Found a way, even in an era of divided government where we disagree, 2 times. We came together and got our budgets done. And for all the coverage on the debt ceiling, I will tell you this, we got it done before the deadline. So my response to you is this, is that, you know, as somebody who is now 48 years old and has spent my entire adult life and believing and working hard for this country, you know, it's an honor and privilege to serve. And I think that what we the people should insist is that our government function, and that we find ways to come together. And I think it's important that legislators do that. So, you know, with that in mind, I look forward to our dialogue, but I want to tell you I have great admiration and respect for what you do, the engine that you bring to the economy, and help really provide for this incredible way of life. You know, in the history of mankind, there have been free countries. And in the history of the world, there have been prosperous countries. But never prosperous and so free. And I'm actually bullish and optimistic about our future. Because I tell you, as Americans, we have so much more in common than we ever have apart. And when we work together, we can get things done more than that. So let's move to Q&A. Thanks for the opportunity. Yes, sir.
Mr. Don Purdy, the Albany Weekend MBA program. I was curious as to whether you're working on any initiatives that will add to current educational opportunities.
Well, I'll tell you that the first thing is that I really completely support the work that's being done with Drew and with Frank. I'm on the production tax credit at the federal level that will ensure that we continue to have that that kind of support from the federal government so that we can get clean and renewable energy at an affordable rates. I mean, look, we've done very well, I think, in these areas when it comes to the science. But one of the areas that we're still struggling with is the cost per kilowatt hour. For example, the photovoltaics. Not uncommon for it to be 65 cents per kilowatt hour. We have a goal of driving that down to 9 cents per kilowatt hour in the old vehicle study in Half Moon. And look, this is an effort that is, I think, right in line with energy and national security, economy, and the environment, and also education. Also education because of the role that the College of Nanoscale plays and all the consortium that's involved supporting that, including the park up in Saratoga. So, I support in ways when it helps with regard to legislation. I also try to proliferate the information, particularly to our small business owners. We have a creamery not far from here. In fact, it's just maybe a mile and a half up the road, up in Brunswick. And this creamery actually put in the photovoltaics with some of the newest arrangements, by the way, for financing, these power purchasing arrangements. Why that's important is I think it's taken it to the next level because we have a lot of farmers, small business owners that look at the solar power and they're just concerned about the capital outlay. And with the power purchasing agreement, they can actually enter into a lease. And the risk is actually taken on by the energy company, not by the farmer or small business owner. And they start driving down their energy costs from day one. So I can tell you that these are actions I'm with every day and every week and every month. I certainly am open to supporting others. And that's why I have a very open and good relationship with our community colleges and high schools. By the way, Drew would be among the first to tell you that he has a very strong relationship with high schools in our area. And that continues to grow. Falls and Spa, just to name among the first, but there are others. So that we are just like with farmers, we're trying to inspire a new generation of Americans to see the possibilities attendant to the clean and renewable energies so that when they make a choice as to what to do with their labor, that they will be informed by these incredible possibilities right here. Because, I mean, that's one of the things I heard as I walked all about this district and moved all about is that they lament the fact that their kids went to college here. Maybe they went to college here, but they didn't come back. If they went away from college or they went away after they left college. We want to be an area that not only has the best schools, and I'll tell you the reason why we want Global Foundries is in part because we do have an incredible educational system. And may we never take it for granted, by the way, because that's a human tendency. I talk as a former infantryman, I talk about calluses on the bottom of the feet, but I'll tell you what, we should never take for granted our SUNY system. It is phenomenal, and it's at affordable cost. And I want to put, along with SUNY, I serve, may we never take them for granted. Because I can tell you, I see Gallivan in here too, and others. I mean, look, the federal government works on some incentives, but they get effectuated because we have somebody like Murray and all his team that works hard to try to translate the federal with a complementary state program with education that we can actually get these executed. So I hope that answers your question, and I'm certainly open to more areas to be supportive, and I deeply appreciate your commitment. Thank you.
Congressman, is there any indication in Washington what might happen next year with the estate tax? As you know, it's very important to the family farms and family businesses.
I think you'll get a reasonable, this is intuitive now, but I think you'll get a reasonable agreement on it. So, there have been figures that have been thrown about, and I think that we'll get something that probably is, could be up to $8 to $10 million exemption for the estate tax. We'll have to see how that all plays out. But I will tell you this: I have sensed a bipartisan empathy with the fact that small business owners, including and especially farmers, this is a major issue. And in fact, it came up during our markup, which went from 10 in the morning until about 1:30 a.m. Came up several times. So there is an appreciation that we need to get the judgment right. And I think that's what it really is about. They want to get the judgment right. So, I mean, of course, that's going to come into play. There will be a wide range of conversation and points on that, but I expect that we'll get something reasonable. Aaron?
Yeah, nothing for short.
Everybody knows Carrie Gordon. She looms large. We're going to miss you.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank you for all your support on behalf of the children and families of Rensselaer County. And I want to thank you for your leadership on the lenderization bill, but it appears to be stalled at this point.
Yeah.
Can you give me any insight?
Well, I want to say that actually Nick's in the room. I really give the credit. I think Paul Tonko is, he may be the strongest leader. I think he used to work with Paul. And, he may very well be the strongest leader in legislation. I have supported him. I think we've had 3 or 4 amendments on the floor on the program, and I voted for every one that Paul brought to the floor. I think that continuing to be an advocate of this and working through the process, that I'm hopeful through conference that the program continues to get support. How much support is yet to be seen. I share your concerns. But look, I mean, I think the evidence shows that when you improve your efficiencies, you clearly need less of energy, which is being helpful to the overall situation. Not to mention, those that qualify for this program are usually the ones that need it the most. So I think it's a program that we need to continue to advocate for. Yes, sir.
Congressman Dennis Sloat, from the NAT platform. Given the region's large entrepreneurial spirit, can we talk more about any legislative items you're working on in particular about for business development, job building?
Yeah, well, the capital formation actually was meant to support that in terms of crowd capital and allowing for a smaller number of entrepreneurs, angel donors to come together with less paperwork and requirements to move forward to capitalize the project. I'll just tell you that when it comes to job creation, I think that there are 6 variables that I work at the federal level. I say the federal level because I'm fully, keenly understanding that the real work is in the main can be done by folks like you. But what we need to do is try to be helpful, facilitating, to affect the underlying business environment so that it's not hostile and uncertain, but really facilitate how we do that. Well, what are those 6 variables? The first 4 I call the impediments to growth. They're part of life. They're going to be there, but the question is, do we have the judgment right on these 4 variables so that it's facilitate taxes, regulation, healthcare costs, energy costs. When I listen to small business owners and I say, are you going to grow this year? And I ask the specific question, no, is your business going to grow this year? In cases where I heard that they were not going to, they usually pointed to 1 or more of these variables. Taxes, that's both the level of taxation across the various levels of government, but it's also the uncertainty related to we are going to need to get at a point where we get a long-term policy on taxes. I've been an advocate and had voted for the bipartisan budget, Cooper La Tourette, which is inspired by the Simpson-Bowles provisions that came out of the Deficit Reduction Commission. And, history, I studied history, I'm a student of history, I'm a lover of history, and, when you look at the past, and when we went through comprehensive tax reform that has stimulated growth, we've got more revenues. So, I don't think we got the tax policy. We need to work on that. I've shown that in my vote for the bipartisan budget. Regulations. We need to have a country, and in fact, the founders provided for this when we went from the Articles to the Constitution. We need to provide for justice, for public health, and public safety. But the question is, do we have that right? And, you know, I don't think that we do. And so we've taken some votes on some issues on regulation that try to put them more back in balance. I'll just illustrate with one. We really don't have time today to go into all of them, but to illustrate, you know, we had a situation about 6-8 months ago with farmers. And by the way, it didn't matter what party they were in. They were very upset about this proposed regulation. And it was going to impact teenagers on the farm. And so I did a sensing session with farmers. They were very, very upset about this. And what I actually told them is that I think once the administration learns your concerns in detail, I think they're going to walk back on it. And because I'd seen that in the spilled milk situation. I don't know if you followed that at all, but that was a specter of a new regulation that was going to impact farmers. So now fortunately, that's what happened. And once the administration was made fully aware of what the ramifications were going to be on the farm, they actually decided not to pursue the draft regulation. So, I mean, that's an illustration, but, you know, let me give you one piece of legislation that I think would help. And that is a bill that I voted for called the REINS Act. It actually passed with bipartisan support in the House, and we're hoping for action on the Senate side. The REINS Act says, anytime that a bureaucratic agency comes forward with a proposed new rule of $100 million or greater impact on the economy, it has to go to the people's representatives first for a vote. To give you a sense of what that would mean, last year in 2011, that would have been 244 required votes in the Congress. That ought to give you a sense for where, you know, beyond laws, rules that are impacting our economy. I think this is very important for transparency and for accountability. Because what anyone can do here, on either side of the issue, is you can contact your legislator ahead of time and say, I want you to vote this way or that way on the proposed rule. I think you get more accountability that way. The other thing is transparency. Because there would be more information out there, I think that all of this, would conduce to better rulemaking. So, taxes, regulation, healthcare costs, perhaps there'll be a question on this. I've never questioned the President's intentions. I think he's wanted to drive down costs, increase access. So do I. You know, the problem is that, you know, having read the bill, I don't think that's going to happen. I think we're already seeing higher costs, and I think the access issues are very problematic. You know, and so I think that there are things that we can do. I think we should move in another direction. But look, I'm also informed by my military experience. If we're not able to repeal the bill, then we're duty-bound to improve it. So, and I think there are things we can do. You talk about affordability. I would tell you that as much as anything, what would help with affordability at the point of delivery of services would be access to more options and choices. There is so much more to the topic being, in addition to that. But in terms of choices, you know, I think of the 20-something-year-olds, and I remember what it was like for my friends when they got out of high school. A good number of my friends never went to college, and they started working for contractors. Keep in mind, the bill impacts those, for small businesses, 50 or greater, which means the preponderance of folks who are impacted by the mandate in our district now are actually going to be, it's their mandate, if they don't work for a major business. So what about their choices? The problem is that if they're not 133% of the poverty line, you know, their choice is to go to the exchange. I say 133% because New York State plans to participate in Medicaid expansion. Okay, Medicaid expansion for the individual is going to be a pretty good deal for them. I mean, they're going to get better coverage, and so for that individual, that's, you know, going to be pretty good for them. But what if you're not 133% of the poverty line? You know, so then you may say, well, what's the poverty line? Well, it's 11,000. What about 133% of the poverty? It's $14,856. So most of the folks who work for roofers or contractors now generally make more than that. Not that they make a lot of them, but, you know, we're talking, you know, we're talking, I think it's $8 to $10 an hour, and, you know, $10 an hour, and you're already moving into the exchange. Now, if you go into the exchange, you know, and you don't have access to options across state lines, I'll tell you, these 20-year-olds don't know what happens.